Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's percolating. Good morning. Yeah. Good morning to the people on Facebook. Good morning to the people on IG. Good morning to the people on the YouTube. Good morning to the people on LinkedIn and Twitter too. Java. Percolating. Get a vibe, stay ready. Truth in the cup, keep it strong, keep it steady. Pull up a chair, yeah. Take a sip with me. Good morning, good people. Java with Jimmy. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, the love percolating. Java with Jimmy. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good morning. Yeah, the love percolating. Yeah, Java with Jimmy. Good morning. Percolating. Yeah, we in it. Yeah, we in it. Good morning. Good morning. Java with Jimmy. Percolating. Yeah, we in it. Yeah, we in it. Good morning. Good morning. Java with Jimmy.
Good morning. Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. We are a few minutes early. If you've seen the flyer, we have quite a long time in the Java Cafe with you all today. It is Monday morning. Today is, oh, no, it's not Monday morning. Today is Tuesday, April 21st, 2026. So I'm a little bit off. I took the day off yesterday, but we are here today. We are talking Black health. We are talking violence prevention here in the city of Boston. And we are also going to talk about the third regional career fair sponsored by Meet Boston. And so in just a few moments, we are going to listen to I do not prefer them, but Dr. Basola Ojikutu, who is the Commissioner of Health for the city of Boston. Her schedule did not allow her to be here. And as you know, we have been intentional since the beginning of last year in returning to your healthy Java. So technically, this morning's episode is an episode of Your Healthy Java. We are going to speak with, or you're going to watch and observe a conversation with Dr. Basola Ojikutu, as I said, who is the health commissioner for the city of Boston. That's going to go for about 30 or so minutes. And then at 10:30 a.m., Dr. Isaac Yablo, who is the senior advisor to the mayor of Boston for violence prevention. They call it more community safety now, or community safety versus public safety. Dr. Yablo will be with us at 10:30 a.m. And then at about 10:50 a.m., no stranger to the Java Cafe, he's been with us each year to promote the regional career fair sponsored by Meet Boston. Conan Harris of Conan Harris Associates will be with us at 10:50. So again, welcome to the Java Cafe. I'm so glad to have you all here today. Please do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe. Definitely a lot of good information all the time, but especially this morning. Please invite others into the Java Cafe. Before we begin this morning, I would be remiss if I did not name and acknowledge another awareness for us in our community of 8 children who are no longer with us. I cannot bring myself to say certain words, and so that's why I'm framing it like that. me thinking it's Monday. I was thinking in the mental health space for Mental Health Mondays, but I just needed to take a few moments and just name that a lot of us are carrying a lot of weight into what we're hearing about. There is the incident with the 14-year-old young woman. Very, very different circumstances, but similar there is a young woman killed. There were children, a young woman who's no longer with us, and also there was also a story that came out, I believe, last week in reference to a family that was going through a level of separation, and that family, well, the parents in that family is no longer with us as well. And so, being aware of what happened over the last 48 hours, I have to acknowledge that. And so, with that, we are going to very soon be speaking with what I would call our regulars in this space, Carlos Enriquez, Joey Bennett. We're going to hear from Brother Jamal Warren soon and some others about the importance of men addressing their mental health. There was never, ever any excuse to take someone's life outside of uh, um, um, definite, blatant self defense or in defense of someone else. There's never an excuse. However, if you look at a pattern over some of these incidents of late, they involve Black men. And it is, we talk about mental health, reaching out, and men dealing with a lot and sometimes not having the tools to be able to deal. And in a lot of these situations, away from the one with the artist and the 14-year-old young lady, these are dynamics that involved the deconstruction of a family. Or we don't know the details, but I have to name that as well. And so there is a correlation into the conversation we're about to have with Dr. Basola Ojikutu in reference to the Health Commission, in reference to health disparities, in reference to the gap between the life expectancy of Black Boston. I'm going to ask you again, we're going to welcome you again to the Java Cafe, and we're going to ask you again to please make sure you like, subscribe, and share this episode. Again, after Dr. Basola, we'll chat with Dr. Yob, and then we'll also chat with, we'll call him today, Dr. Harris. Conan Harris will be with us at 10:50. So here is the conversation with Dr. Basola Ojikutu in reference to the health report that came out and looked at the impact and where we are with here. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. When you're watching, as mentioned a couple of seconds ago, we are sort of in a pre-record with Dr. Basola because we thought it was very important to chat with her around the recent report that came out about life expectancy as it pertains to Black Boston. We're very aware, of data as it, most recently, Congresswoman Presley talks about the life expectancy difference from, I believe it was, Dr. Basola, and you can correct me after you say hello, but I believe that the latest iteration before this report was from Nubian to, or the difference between, I actually talked with you about this, the difference between Nubian and Fenway or Back Bay. Prior to that, Congresswoman Presley often named her bus ride with the difference of Nubian Square to Harvard Square as well. And so the data is there, but, updates with that. And Dr. B is a public health person. And I was talking with someone from DPH the other day, Dr. B, and they were talking about surveillance. And at first I had to, in these times, I was like, wait, what are we surveilling? But that is what you all do. Anyway, so I'll take it down. I think enough context has been set. Please greet the audience, and then we'll go right in. And after your greeting, if you can, as we often do, Dr. B, in whatever context from national to local, I don't know if the recent budget cuts are impacting, your shop there, but how would you describe like the state of public health in one word?
Okay. So hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Basola Ojikutu. I'm the Commissioner of Public Health for the City of Boston. And I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to you about life expectancy, about health outcomes, about our new population health equity agenda, which is called Live Long and Well. But to answer James's question, public health is under threat right now. It's under threat federally. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that some of that threat obviously comes down into our local work, but it's really more the sense of uncertainty and chaos, because the reality is that we are stable. We're fine. None of our programs are changing. We haven't, had to let anyone go. The Boston Public Health Commission is stable and will be continuing to provide services in FY27 as we have been. I think that when I think of public health, which is the science and sometimes people say the art of prevention, it's the art of prolonging life and promoting health. We really differ from healthcare because we do focus on communities and community level efforts, and really thinking about how do we reinvest in neighborhoods to improve overall health. So if I have to think of one word for public health, I say community. And I would have said community last year and the year before and the year before that. So I don't know that my observations have necessarily changed, because our work is strong and our work is continuing.
I definitely appreciate that. And again, Dr. B, I've had the opportunity to work with you. You've been, strangers of the Java Cafe, and we've had some sort of real offline conversations just about the state of things. And so I love your consistency. But let's jump right into, this report. One, if you, in a couple of seconds, can level set, because there are different interpretations of the purpose of this report, are the interpretations based on when you are highlighting certain findings and outcomes? So if you can level set around the report, and then we can sort of get into, as I am in this population, a Black man, there has been some emphasis on a lot of sub disparities and the disparity, with our brothers as well. And so can you level set, the report, and then we're going to find out what was most shocking, what Dr. B what was affirmed that you live and know, because you still practice. So a long way of, let's get into it.
So let's take a step back. One important aspect of public health is our work around collecting data and looking for trends in data and surveillance. I think it's incredibly important that we understand what's happening both on individual level and within our communities and geographically. So we issue reports. I'm sure many of you all have seen the Health of Boston data. We issue those reports and try to do them as regularly as possible. So this particular data was a follow-up to data that we released back in 2023 on life expectancy. That data, just let me review because I think it's important. A long time ago, so more than a decade ago, there was data that showed a 33-year life expectancy gap between a small area in Roxbury and a small area in Back Bay. So 33 years, very low life expectancy in that small area of Roxbury was like 59 years of age. So when I started here at the commission, I knew that data very well, but I knew it hadn't been updated recently. We proceeded to update those data. And it was a very important exercise. So when we say there's not enough data, you always have to stay on top of data. You have to know where you are to know where you're going. So when we updated those data, what we found is that there's a 23-year life expectancy gap. So going from 33 years to 23 years, still extremely stark, incredibly concerning, and much more work to do. Okay, so now the next step, that's
question. Can we note
sure.
that is, there's a canyon, never just room, there's a canyon for improvement. That's a decade decrease in the gap. Is that correct?
Well, it's actually a little bit more than a decade. So the report came out a decade ago, the 33-year report. The data came.
33-year report. For some reason, and it could be my conditioning and just, the subject. I heard a 33-year life expectancy versus the last time of the report.
It is. Let me be very clear, because I'm glad you're stopping me so I can slow down and make sure that everybody understands. So there was a report that was issued in 2012. In that report, they relayed data, they discussed data that showed a 33-year life expectancy gap between a small area in Roxbury and a small area in Back Bay. The data that they analyzed was actually older than that. And that's okay, but it was good for us to know. My point in mentioning that is to say that the data needed to be updated. And so in 2023, we released updated data, and that showed the 23-year life expectancy gap still between a small area in Roxbury and that same area in Back Bay. So that data is about place, it's about neighborhood, but what about race? We know nationally there are wide gaps by race in our country. We know here in our city that previously there have been documented data, but not as well documented, I think, as we were trying to do this time around. So I think it was important to get these data. What these data showed was that there continues to be a significant gap in life expectancy between Black individuals and other individuals in the city of Boston. Black individuals have the lowest life expectancy when compared to Asian, Latinx, and white individuals in our city. So this is important. Secondly, what it showed is that over the course of about a decade, the gap between Black residents and other residents in terms of life expectancy has actually widened. Okay, so that's important to know.
So on the point where I thought I heard progress, no. So my point, because in prep for this, I was like, oh, we don't, you heard me. I'm like, oh, we don't need other data. We can put the energy elsewhere. Even noting the surveillance, you're even making another case that it has to be in public health space. It has to be constant. So let's go deeper.
So this issue of the gap widening, I think, is really important. What we did was we looked back at where we saw the widening sort of begin. And the widening really was beginning around COVID-19, around the years between 2020 and 2022. And during that time, in addition to COVID-19, we had an increase in drug overdoses and overdose mortality. So those two factors have led to a widening of the gap, because what has happened is that other races and ethnicities have rebounded at a faster rate than, say, Black individuals have rebounded in terms of their life expectancy, in terms of our life expectancy. So we know that this gap has widened and we are concerned about it. The other piece of data that I think is incredibly important within the space of those of us who are doing public health work, those of us who are in healthcare, really, I should say, important for our entire city, what we noted is that if everything remains the same, if we don't do anything differently, that gap is going to continue into the next decade. There isn't something that is necessarily bringing us closer together in terms of outcomes. There's nothing that's necessarily closing that gap. We need to do some things differently if we want to see that gap close. So I would encourage anyone who's interested to read the report. It's a data brief. So we try to keep it on very short, very succinct, but to the point.
I am one. I'm glad that we got the affirmation that we always need to surveil or have surveillance around public health. But it just, Dr. Basola, with that understanding of not getting off sort of the cyclical cycle of numbers go up, we put a little money behind it, not, just society in general, numbers go down a little bit. What you're saying now is if we don't become very aggressive, and though you don't do the politics, it is unequivocally clear that because of some politics or policies, with what you said, in this climate, not getting off that track would be even more interesting, because there are things that poverty may increase. There was the attack on SNAP benefits, food, all of that other stuff. And so that I was going to ask you what was most shocking. I'm sitting here shocked by things that, we always say we know, but hearing it articulated is just very, very different. Again, another reason for smiling, another reason for data that I'm getting, here in real time.
No. I hear that you're shocked, but first of all, this is why we release data and we try to make it accessible to communities. It's reaffirming what we know, but it's updating and looking at it from different vantage points. I actually don't want people to be shocked. I want you to be mobilized. I want you to decide that we're going to take some actions. That's what I want.
We're going to talk a little bit
Yeah.
about that
Mhm.
at the end, away from, there's things that we promote on Your Healthy Java twice a month, all the time. But, we can get some sort of community focused ways that we can kind of how we change the trajectory of what you just said. So, that was shocking to me. And you talked about, different data sets. What, and I referenced to the event that sort of highlighted this report, but then now I believe a focus on Black male health.
Mhm.
There's this misnomer, sort of on one hand, understanding men generally
Mhm.
are the last ones to go to the doctor, but then some will say, well, women are because they're always taking care of everybody. But, men tend, in my experience in growing up 54 years on this earth,
Mhm.
men tend not to be as aggressive with healthcare. And so I think that is important. And then what you just talked about with the disparities and the Black community not necessarily jumping back into delayed screenings, not getting back into routine and preventative healthcare, it sort of reaffirms that notion that came up when, America catches a cold, the Black community,
Mhm.
gets the flu. So let's talk a little bit about some of the findings that you saw either affirmed or that maybe were new in your surveillance around Black males.
Mhm. Well, we knew when we were taking a look at the data that Black men nationally have the lowest life expectancy amongst groups that we tend to measure. Just to be clear, other places around the country, indigenous populations tend to have the overall lowest life expectancy. So I just want to make that point before we jump into Black men. It's very clear that there's an ongoing challenge here in Boston. Black men have the lowest life expectancy of all groups that we were able to measure. It is approximately 9 years lower than the life expectancy noted amongst other men. And if you think about what the immediate, or we call them proximal causes of death amongst Black men, it's overdose mortality, it's cancer, and primarily preventable cancers, screenable cancers, and it's cardiometabolic disease. And then last, number 4, is homicide, so violence. But I just want to be clear that all of these things, we've known this, over time, just like you said, we've known this, but I think highlighting it just puts a laser focus and it makes us a little bit more clear about where we need to invest.
It's a thought. So, when you talk about investment, I'm glad that at least on your side at the commission, that the investment is either at a level or at least not being deducted from where it was. But when you mention, the investment, I have to think about the $500,000 that is a budget cut, for focus on Black males in this year's, overall city budget.
Mhm.
And so with, if I can kind of deviate, but it is related, with the focus on the Black community, Dr. Basola, with a few years ago, I gave him a promotion. City Councilor Ricardo Arroyo got the city council to pass a resolution that considered racism a public health issue.
Mhm.
Do you sort of agree with that and understand? Do you consider racism a public health issue?
100%. So racism is a public health crisis. I would say I actually update that because that was actually in the summer of 2020 when that was declared here in Boston.
I was in the chamber. I was there that
Yeah.
day. Yes. Yep. And the current mayor actually was the first time I heard the words used versus Corona. And she used the term COVID-19. I was in the chamber that day.
Wow. Wow. I mean, it was a momentous day, I'm sure. At the time, Boston joined, a number of other jurisdictions, cities, counties, states across the U.S. who also declared racism a public health crisis. Now, some people say that was just a symbolic gesture. And when I'm around my colleagues, other commissioners of public health across the U.S., a lot of them feel as though that's the case. What I would say is that here in Boston, we were actually allocated funding to address some of the issues that are leading to that finding of racism as a public health crisis. And it's not that we received enough money, all the money that we need, but I do think that that's an important difference in what happened here in Boston versus what happened in other cities. So actually, we are shifting some of our money from the declaration of racism as a public health crisis into addressing this issue of low Black male life expectancy. We will be releasing an RFP, and there will be money that will be going to organizations, coalitions, hopefully. A lot of this is still, it has to be written up, but we're looking forward to announcing more about that at the Black Men's Activation Summit on June 3rd.
I owe one of your staff an apology. The good brothers that I've seen grow up, Brother Jeremiah.
Yes.
Commissioner, I've been busy and not as active with the committee, but
Understood.
The involvement has been amazing. And so looking forward to that event. Mention the date again, June 6th, correct?
June 3rd. It's
June 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to get me. And so, Dr. Basola, in addition to that, this is a start, bringing the attention to it. There are two areas, Dr. B, that for me, not a public health expert, not a clinician, but have been in this space for a while. Mm-hmm. And when we talk about this impact and in the process, thank your team for working on it. But I think about Dr. Kevin Simone, I think I said it right, shop with behavioral health, and then also Dr. Yablo, with violence prevention, that fourth sort of component. And I think you would agree that all four of those components that you mentioned around the data set, mental health is a huge contributor, good, bad, and unfortunately ugly, as where I just noticed a trend that Black men are breaking down. We had the incident in Forest Hills. There's the incident in New York with the man with the machete. So all of that to say that with the summit coming up, you got the RFP coming out. How is Dr. Simone's shop and Dr. Yablo's shop working together additionally to prevent, intervene when needed, and then in worst case, and it's applicable to both, in worst case scenarios, respond to that? Because these have been shops that Dr. Yablo only overall for about a year, but Dr. Simone has been in place for a couple of years. How is this report going to make collaboration or what they're doing more aggressive?
So I think it's a great question. Obviously mental health is just as important as physical health, and certainly significantly impacts health outcomes. So a couple of years ago, as you stated, we hired a chief behavioral health officer, and that's Dr. Kevin Simone. We also opened a Center for Behavioral Health and Wellness, and the director of that is Samara Grossman. And essentially what that work is doing is it's really working to enhance mental health programming around the city and to diversify and make more widely available a behavioral health workforce, a mental health workforce, particularly within BPS, but beyond. In addition, they're doing, I think, really important work destigmatizing outreach, getting help for mental health concerns. The Heads Up campaign was released, really focusing on Boston teens to talk about their mental health, support one another, and seek help from trusted adults as needed. So I appreciate all of what's happening in that space, and it is very important to our Live Long and Well agenda, which is our commitment as a city to close these gaps and to really work intentionally, follow the data, work intentionally with community, invest collaboratively and invest together to address all of these concerns. So mental health is certainly an important piece of that.
And then the piece with Dr. Yablo, because I hate to say that, those impacted by violence, the amount of people has increased around homicides, I believe, in the last year. You understand more than I that those individuals' demise may be higher if not for more improved medical technology. So, and again, Dr. Basola, we understand when people start dealing with poverty and impacts of world events, how is it, and one of my favorite acronyms, SSYI and all those others, how with that piece around violence being the fourth, where are we a year into Dr. Yablo having that understanding a year's orientation? Your shop is very different from City Hall. You know, where are we within a year later within the results of this report and how his office is going to.
So approximately 1 year ago, the Office of Violence Prevention was established. Prior to that time, our violence prevention work was within one of our bureaus, our Child Adolescent Health Bureau. And Isaac Yablo came over to lead the office while maintaining his role as a senior advisor to the mayor. The work is strengthened in that time. You know, violence is a public health and public safety issue, but certainly we are in the public health sphere. And because of that, our goal is to provide ongoing intervention and prevention initiatives, really to support residents impacted by violence and to foster community healing, but also really to focus in on prevention and focusing in on the needs of those people who are most at risk. So within that department, you mentioned SSYI, or the Safe and Successful Youth Initiative. That's part of the Life Course Health Unit. But I also want to mention some other work that's being done that I think is important. Our domestic sexual and gender-based violence prevention initiative work. I think that's something newer within that space for us. Really think about how to train, educate, build capacity to do work to prevent and to work to manage folks who have unfortunately experienced domestic sexual or gender-based violence. I think a lot of that work is described online, really impressed with it and am excited given that FIFA is coming, that, you know, human trafficking is going to be an issue, seeing what that work will actually evolve into. But certainly we still have the Violence Intervention and Prevention Initiative, and we have the Community Healing Response Network, which continues under the leadership of Dr. Yablo. So I think the work is only getting stronger as its independent office. And again, I think that I'm excited to see where it goes. We'll continue to invest in it. We certainly need it as a city, and I think it's really critically important.
There was a few things there, Dr. Basoli. You've been on here enough to know that, I have an idea of conversation in my head. And then, when you just mentioned FIFA, human trafficking becomes interesting. But then also, I don't know if you've been aware, I hope I can, mention this. It is a public, the brother Victor Ortiz, I don't know if you know of him, problem gambling.
Yes.
We have a reel going around that is saying that problem gambling is a public health issue. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. We have met, and I've met with their entire team, and we'll be speaking at their meeting, which I believe is next month.
It's coming up soon. And so I had them on a show with me. And so when you mentioned FIFA, human trafficking is not, when you mentioned it, I'm like, oh, duh, yes. But then the problem gambling came up, and you mentioned it. And so, Dr. B, I think you agree that where, the long-time activism side of me, while understanding that there's been a lot of progress, I really, the great Dr. Ferrer, she leaves a legacy. And I would say, ma'am, with all due respect, you've picked up and got things through COVID and sort of moved on, but you would maybe acknowledge that there's always room for improvement with public health. And I just, there's some things that how can the community, Dr. Basola, help bring more aggression, contribute to coordination around efforts that will decrease the life expectancy gap with the focus, yes, on Black males, with understanding three of those, all of the areas are important, but violence is one, I've moved in a lot with the mental health piece. How can we be a partner and not you, but in a system that is a valued partner as the end user and consumer in that sort of, understanding in the medical space? Like, we want to be better No, because I'll get in trouble for that. We would like to be engaged more as the end consumers, generally speaking. How can the commission and the community do that together around all those findings and going forward?
I appreciate that question. We have a lot of work to do, and it's not just about public health. It really is about all of our systems. And like you said, it's creating a stronger ecosystem of many different sectors, because we need all of them if we truly want to value health and wellness in our city and ensure that everybody lives a long and healthy life. So I mentioned Live Long and Well, our population health equity initiative. And I mentioned it not to just throw out a title of something. It really is our way of thinking under one umbrella about how we as a city not only close these gaps, but also improve quality of life across Boston, because I think it definitely needs to happen. Within Live Long and Well, there are a number of natural partners, certainly community leadership, advocates, such as yourself, who cross many sectors, our hospitals and community health centers across City of Boston, all of our partners, and then investors, because we do need money. I think we have to lead with data. We have to keep refreshing our data. As you said, it evolves. It unearths different perspectives, and I think that we have to.
You just had a Java moment. I see you just trying to articulate it out, and I get it. Definitely.
Yeah, no, I have those all the time, so I'm with you. Especially when there's a lot to say, right? And your mind is also going fast, because I want to make sure the point is made. So leading with data, obviously sharing decision-making power, if not shifting it entirely to communities, establishing partnerships with shared goals, working together, focusing on, the social determinants of health, all the things that we just talked about, and really thinking, how do we work more collaboratively, and how do we spend our money more collaboratively, as opposed to working in silos. I mean, I just don't think that that's ever anywhere. It's certainly not going to get us anywhere different than where we've been before. So my hope is that, our neighborhoods, our residents, our community members, all of us will say, hey, let me jump on board with Live Long and Well, and let's make this a positive thing. It's not always about getting mired in what's negative, but let's think about, how do we make sure that we live well, and let's make sure that we live long, so we can see, children grow up, we see neighborhoods change, we, see our partners, we age together, and then, like I said, age in a positive way, and age in a way that's, it's a way we would want to age, as opposed to what we sometimes often see
and live. Dr. Pasola, I got one last question. I got a couple more minutes with you. You talk about quality of life. We talked about racism being a public health issue. We talk about ecosystems. At what level do you see opportunities for a sustained economic development for the most marginalized communities? In this context, we're talking about the Black community. When you talk about quality of life in an ecosystem through the lens of public health, economic flexibility and development, how much does public health and that play into or off of each other?
Mm-hmm. So I'm sorry, James, I think you broke up a little bit. So the question is about, go ahead. Can you repeat it again? I'm sorry.
Economic development and opportunities. When you talk about quality of life in the ecosystem,
100%. Yes. Mm-hmm.
How much does economic opportunities and people's economic standing with opportunities, how much does that play into the public health sphere?
So if I had to identify the most important structural determinant of health, I would say that it is socioeconomic status, and it is economic opportunity, it is wealth creation. Fundamentally, wealth and health are intertwined, and I'm not saying that the other social and structural determinants aren't of importance, but I do believe that economics is really at the root of our health, our wellness, and our power. And so for me, that is of critical importance. And that's why, you know, with our, as you probably remember, our ATRIS health equity funding, $10 million that was, you know, given to the city of Boston with the Boston Public Health Commission. We are focused on economic opportunity. We believe that long term, it's not immediate, long term, that's going to improve overall health outcomes. You know, it allows you, if you have wealth, if you have money, you have a safety net. You know, it allows you the flexibility to take care of yourself and to not be worried, stressed when there are shocks. You know what I mean? And there are always, you know, things that happen in life. And it's just a very different existence when you have something to fall back on. And so I strongly suggest that we focus our energies in that area if we truly do want to, you know, close gaps and really think about the quality of life issues that I said are so important.
It's interesting because, you know, closing the racial wealth gap, closing the life disparities gap, there's just a lot of gaps and canyons that we just need to pull together and make.
We can. I'm going to say positive.
yes, we have to stay positive. Yes,
yes,
it's going to happen. No, yeah. Dr. Basola, I really appreciate you, and as I said before, your consistency and the way that you move of prioritizing the people in public health, in policy, and not the hold on, let me get you off camera. And not the politics. Really, it is really appreciated. So, Dr. B, thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.
Great, I appreciate you too, James. Good talking to you as always.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
For those of you that just joined us, that was a conversation with Dr. Basola Ojikutu, who is the health commissioner over at the Boston Public Health Commission. Staying in that vein, as I mentioned, Dr. Isaac Yablo is joining us in just a couple of seconds. I saw a lot of the dialogue on Instagram, Facebook. That recording was recorded before the incident of this weekend. And we named some other incidents there as it pertains to Black men. So as I said, we are going to have some more conversations about the mental health space. We'll invite Dr. Simone to get an update on, you know, what he's doing in that space to ensure that systems and also ways of what is available to Black men is out there as much as it can be. And so without further ado, it's been a little bit since we've had him on before. I think just about a year or so ago. I've advocated for this for over a decade, along with others. Dr. Yablo went to City Hall physically, but still as the senior advisor to the mayor of Boston around community safety, but went to the Boston Public Health Commission. If you all remember, I went to Mayor Menino in 2006-07. Around that time, thanks to the work of Dr. Pethro Stith, trauma work, violence prevention started to move in a space of public health. And from that point there, when I got really active again, there was this move to have everything in what we would call one shop. I see Shakira from Shakira's story on Dr. Yablo now oversees all things as they pertain to community safety and violence prevention. We'll get a little, he's been over there for a few months, so he can better define what it is that he's doing. So without further ado, please welcome Dr. Isaac Yablo to the Java Cafe this morning. What's up, sir? Take your mute off.
You got me. Yeah, we're good. No, we're good. It's good to be here, James. I appreciate you always creating space to have these very important conversations.
Ironically so, you came in and chose violence this morning. Did you?
No,
I'm gonna respect you. And
you want to prevent violence, James. That's what we're focused on, preventing it.
That's why I blocked you this week. What you all are seeing are and Dr. Yablo and I are very transparent about this, and some of those close to us understand this, that we, in this work, we've had a roller coaster of engagement. Let's just frame it like that. And so I do also, Dr. Diablo, have to name that, incidents nationally, of course, locally, don't go, you don't not, how can you don't go untouched, by those, especially in the space, that you work, and it's hurtful anywhere, but the thought is, God forbid, if something like that, happened here with us locally. So we're praying for them.
Mm.
Dr. Diablo, we only have about a good 18 minutes for you before our brother Conan Harris, who is your, to some extent, predecessor.
Yeah, it's the
In
big
the space.
homie. That's the
I
big
thought
homie,
about,
definitely.
I thought about that yesterday. He's going to join us shortly. So let's just jump right in, sir. For those that have not met you before in the Java Cafe, please introduce yourself. And if I could ask you, Dr. Diablo, if you could describe, in the context of your work, being there in the past year, if you could describe the state of violence in Boston, and considering, I told the audience, it's not just gun, youth, and retaliatory
Yep.
violence that you oversee anymore. So if you
Yep.
could give us one word after your introduction about the state of violence in Boston.
Yeah. Again, so thank you, everyone. Isaac Gablo. I hold the dual role within the city. So director of the Office of Violence Prevention, which is made up of 5 teams on the BPHC side, and then senior advisor to Mayor Wu, which basically entails ensuring the mayor is up to date on anything that's going on as it relates to community violence. I have been in the role as senior advisor since October of 23. As of June of this past summer, I took over the role as OVP director. It's really been a lot of fun, a lot of challenges, a lot of learning. If I had to describe the work, the current state, in one word, I would say progress, but I would also say gap filling. I know it's hyphenated, but progress in that the OVP for a while
Can
had
you
been doing a
can you do me a favor in
yeah,
government, in medicine, in your,
sure.
we use a lot of acronyms, and it may be a given, but can you
Okay, yeah,
define
yeah, yeah, yeah.
OVPs and
Yes,
give
yes,
us
yes.
in that, though, a little definition more of those 5 bureaus
Yeah,
that you oversee as
absolutely.
well?
Absolutely. So OVP stands for the Office of Violence Prevention. And as I briefly referenced, there's 5 programs that make up the Office of Violence Prevention. So you have the Community Healing Response Network, formerly known as the Neighborhood Trauma Teams. You have VIP, Violence Intervention and Prevention, or Village in Progress. You have the Capacity Building and Training Initiative. You have the Domestic Sexual and Gender-Based Violence Prevention Initiative. And then you have the Life Course Health Unit, which is comprised of 3 separate teams within the LCU. So you have Promoting Potential Boston, P2B, the Safe and Successful Youth Initiative, SSYI, and then you have the Men's Health Initiative. The only difference between the 3 programs is the age groups that they particularly prioritize. Um, and so I went from being in the mayor's office to having the community safety team to coming over to the health commission and being much more resourced just in terms of the day-to-day entities that are focused on, as you mentioned, James, all forms of violence prevention. So not just community violence, but also domestic, sexual, gender-based violence, systemic violence. And I want to thank Bronwyn for the amazing work that the CBTI, Capacity Building Training Initiative, does. And then, of course, community violence, that has been the bread and butter for a long time for the OVP, for the Office of Violence Prevention, primarily anchored through Roy's team, the Life Course Health Unit, but also, as you know, in the context of trauma response, the Community Healing Response Network, and then just being a stable uh, entity, I guess you could call it, within each community before anything happens in VIP. Uh, we can certainly talk about the DSG, domestic sexual gender-based violence work. Kim is doing some amazing work as it relates to preparing for the World Cup. But that is like the overview of the OVP, and everything is kind of strung along these lines of prevention, intervention, recovery, and then I know you'll like this, the fourth entity, reinvestment. So reinvestment in communities directly impacted by the things that we're talking about. Again, yeah, I would use progress and gap filling as the 2 words.
That is that progress, I believe, was one. I don't know how much of Dr. Basola's conversation you were able to observe, but she talked about that as well because I named, especially in the context of things present, what's going on with our women and girls, the correlation of human trafficking. Dr. Basola mentioned that with FIFA, the issue with the 14-year-old and the rap artist whose name I will not say. There's a lot there. And so Dr. Yablo,
Mhm.
it has been about a year. I mentioned that you and I's engagement, it roller coasters but to your point, recovery, I think it's important that we understand that you understand the passion. I also understand, unfortunately, to some extent, the politics in which you try to do things. And so let's level set a few things. One is that we are aware, you are a part of it, that since the disbanding of SOAR, one of the things I know that's on your agenda from last year to the job fair incident to the one the wonderful location of South Bay, to I don't know of late, and I don't know the ages. There's a video floating around and in a chicken establishment. Um, that sort of community functionality that SOAR and the street workers had with summer coming, and we've known for years, it's not just the summer, but young people, some are out of school. There's a lot more idle time. That is a
Mhm.
gap when you talk about gap. That's one of the gaps. Where are we with intent around addressing that? And I'll couple that with impactful programs that through some conversation, quick change in scope of service, little shifting around of line items, we've discussed ideas of how we fulfill that gap. Where are we, doctor?
Yeah, I think so. A great question, first of all, James. And I'm just looking at like what we saw. I believe it was definitely not last summer. It might have been the summer prior, or maybe 3 summers ago, where we did see like a little bit of a spike between young people, adolescent young people, by the way, after school time, out of school time, post job time, where they're getting involved in behavior that is certainly not what we would be promoting to the masses, right? First of all, there's been multiple ways that we've attempted to address that gap, and I'd argue pretty successfully over the past 2 summers. So, special shout out to my colleague, my brother in service, Pedro Cruz, who oversees the Youth Engagement and Advancement Office. I will note that the majority of the young people that historically have been involved in those kind of like the group think where it ends in sometimes it ends in community violence or kind of just folks acting out. A lot of those young people are young people that are connected to school communities, are connected to employment, and have out of school resources. But where the gap was is the timing. We didn't prioritize after that 6 p.m. between that 6 and 9 p.m. gap. And that's why Pedro came up with Boston After Dark, which we are going to be supporting very intentionally and intensely this summer. So the Boston After Dark series, which is curated for 14 to 18-year-olds between 6 and 9 p.m., specifically on Friday nights. I'm sponsoring sites that are particularly in housing developments across the community, right? So we're trying to prioritize a specific subset of young people. But then even more broadly, we're having pretty regular conversations with the property managers of South Bay. We're in contact with the BHA and Parks Department as it relates to Harambe Park. We've always and consistently engaged Mike Nichols down there at the DBA, Downtown Boston Alliance, just to ensure that the downtown area is stable. So these are ongoing conversations that we have. And I will also give a special shout out to my colleagues at the Boston Public School System, particularly safety services and student support, because they've also allocated resources to historically have allocated resources to addressing issues like this in the past. So
Dr.
I think.
Yablo, there's a lot, to unpack in the
Mhm,
context of what you mentioned about SSYI's work. You said some of
mhm,
the difference in the programming or the names or focus is based on
Sure.
age. And so, you know, one observation, this has been my observation since I work for Mayor Menino. I get the B's, BHA, BPS, you know, but you know, there's folks that as you, I believe, if I understood you right, that aren't engaged in some of those entities. And so to close that particular part out and those ongoing conversations to fill that gap, when will there be action beyond the conversation? Again, I get it, Dr. Yablo. I'm not capping for you and all that. You've been there a year. You just would have got last year, July 1st, you would have not had any or some say so over who was granted. I'm noticing some conversation in the chat. You and I have talked about audit
Sure.
of programs that are not impactful. And so in the context of that and talking about that gap for what you named as the group the group young people tank things, when will we see a definitive action demonstrated from those conversations?
Well, I think again, great question. You will see action. There's action already been taken, but again, I think the key difference between the way that I was able to operate in the mayor's office and the way that I have to operate in the health commission is the health commission does not just allow you to share information because of HIPAA. So if we were like hypothetically, if there was a group of young people that we identified that were acting up, whether it's South Bay or downtown or Harambe Park, wherever it is, if we identify them and then we do begin to engage those young people, it would not be in a way that the masses would be able to see. It would not be, and I'm not saying that you're alluding to anything performative, but it certainly would not be performative. It would be very intentional. And sometimes being intentional does not mean being visible in community. It does not mean walking around blatantly outreaching. Sometimes it's very specific and targeted outreach, prioritized outreach, I would say, with those young people. I would say, I think in terms of the way to determine what actions are being taken is let's look at some of the stuff that we were seeing a couple of years ago in South Bay, and then take the reports that we're getting from the property management where they're saying things have really, really calmed down. Now, just in context, South Bay as a shopping institution is the size of Beacon Hill, right? So it's a massive area. There's about $1.6 million spent on private security, separate from anything that we're doing in the area. So there's a massive investment to ensure that the area is safe. But as you've seen, James, that's why it's intentional on the violence prevention side, not only on the enforcement and public safety side, for us to have resources for the young people. So sometimes it's not necessarily about engaging them down there, but it's about pulling them away from South Bay, creating spaces like, yeah.
A couple of things there, and I think it further solidifies my still concern when and I get it, targeted, some of the programming that you have doesn't, unfortunately, this is a frustration of many parents and community, a system thing, they don't get activated or get services until they hit a list. And so to the point about the gap where the street workers, you said maybe not the masses outreach, that you know is just something that I would really strongly consider maybe a different lens, or maybe you didn't fully articulate it based on how you said it. But I literally probably got about 4 more minutes with you. I know Brother Coleman is going to get ready to drop. We need to get you back. And he literally just popped in as I said that. You talk about resources. We see currently, and let's just level set, this is unfortunately a process, a part of the system. The mayor puts out her budget, and then her and the council go back and forth. If I understand right, there is some that she does propose the health commission's the health commission's line items, correct? That is part of her overall city budget, though an ancillary sort of entity.
Correct.
Okay. So with that being said, there, Dr. Yablo, as you know, and I alluded to it a few minutes ago, there's a lot of energy, around resources, coupled with what I mentioned about an audit. How are you looking at, there's some conversation in here about measuring and impact. One person even says some of these programs don't even have young people. And Dr. Yaba, we've talked about this before you was in that position. Where are we with an audit to ensure that the allocation of resources, some becoming a little more scarce or at level funding, to have the impact of all of those areas, not just those that are engaged with the bees, the middlers. And then we've seen of late from the data that, you know, some of our old heads, the OGs, are in need of, and I know there's reentry. And so within the next 3 minutes or 2 minutes, because I got one more question. Can
I
you,
got
where
you.
are we with impact through budget by task, completion of task, and further being budgeted and measurable outcomes? Where are we with that?
Yeah, so we have an entire effort right now undergoing within the Office of Violence Prevention to actually build out our own evaluation infrastructure that will be used for our internal programming and all the programming that we rely on in terms of partnership. In terms of an audit, a financial audit, I would really defer to either the auditor or the mayor's office on that particular thing. You did mention like this is the first time that this coming fiscal year will be the first time that I actually oversee an RFP process. But as Dr. O, I believe, mentioned, I think it was with you or it might have been with someone else, the Health Commission is stable. I know the city is going through a lot as a whole right now, but the mayor has made sure to prioritize both public safety and public health. The Health Commission is stable. That includes the Office of Violence Prevention. What we are now looking at is the different ways in which funds that we have can be disseminated in a way that will be conducive of full evaluation, and then in a way that we can be transparent about what we're actually investing in.
That was good. That summarizes it for me because I got to.
Okay,
I'm trying to
got
be
it.
good. The last part. So there will. So understanding the level set. New RFPs begin July 1st.
Correct.
That's applying. They won't be awarded until months.
They no, they'll be awarded July 1st. So they
Oh, so
have to go out.
you're in an RFP process now that
Correct.
you're overseeing with your staff
Correct.
that is examining past impact of current grantees, and then are you looking at new grantees and their impact?
I would look, we're not necessarily looking at because we can't necessarily earmark, and I'll keep it very short. We're not
Well, when
looking
I
at
say new
specific.
grantees, is there consideration that where current grantees got a gap?
There's consideration for filling the gaps that exist currently within the programming, right? And so naturally, you'd think that if there's current gaps with current partners, that you'd want to figure out, not necessarily getting rid of current partners, but just figuring out how do we fill the gaps. The goal has always been to partner with community on this work. We will continue to do that, but just the basis of the partnership might look a little bit different.
Okay, you see where I was going. Okay, last thing is with that.
Yep.
How are you? I know you're doing the listening sessions, and Dr. Yablo, they've been going on for eons.
Yeah.
Not just with you, but so that community impact in that assessment or looking at current grantees. Are you talking to clients of these either in community or and I know there's the HIPAA, but when I used to be a grant manager, we were able to at least pull
Yeah.
files and look at progress notes, look at how many times they reached out, look at, so is how much of community will have influence on this next round of filling the gaps and continued progress?
Well, community is the basis of the work. So community, and we also rely, again, as I mentioned, on community to solve many of these issues. I think that the gaps, though, are objective. It's not like an opinion. It's not my opinion that these gaps exist. We hear it in community, and we see it in the evaluation. And so, I think to prioritize community voice, it's about talking about solutions to fill gaps that are objective that we need to address. Can't address the fire without addressing the gas leak as well. So.
That I was gonna say that was yeah, I get you, and that was cute, Dr. I'm messing. I just, Nothing about, I don't have to repeat anything that we, discussed in the past. I just thought it was important for you to some extent level set. Very, very last thing. Brother Conan, get ready, get your camera on, and we're going to bring you in so you can greet this brother.
That's
And
my
then we're
guy.
going to talk about, and then we'll get ready to end out with this. Summer employment. There was the youth jobs event this weekend. And Brother Conan is going to come in and talk about the career fair. And that's more, I believe, would be targeted 18 and up and some of our older heads. How important, how are you coordinating with I think it's now I'm old. It was Yo Boston Youth Opportunity. I don't know what it's called
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
That piece with the older men will end with that of addressing those that aren't in the bees, that we need youth jobs, but we need employment from men too, because in the context of what's going on now, national winning, you get this breadwinning, providing is interesting in these times. So, Brother Conan, get ready to come in, sir.
We're
Go
on
ahead.
track with YOU. I work with YOU every day. I actually have a satellite office in Nubian Square that's in their space. We're on track to have invested, uh, assuming that the next investment goes through, we're on track to have invested $500,000 into YOU in the last year and a half, specifically for youth stipends. So all of that funding is going towards covering employment for young people, particularly during the summer, but also we have a chunk that roll over into the school year as well. So after September. So YOU has been like one of my closest collaborators since I've been in the role.
And what about
Uh,
the older, working with reentry or workforce development and
Yeah, Power Corps, workers empowerment. But the goal for me is also to create like long-lasting permanent employment. So opportunities that we have within the city of Boston or with our private partners has always been a priority as well, especially once an individual turns 18, and even more specifically if they don't have a Corey. It's about trying to transition them into a career, and working up from there.
there's definitely, as you said, there's we have to note progress. We have to note progress, but we
Yeah.
also have to note the gaps that are still there. You just mentioned the word transition. We're getting ready to transition and bring Brother Conan. I've mentioned that you're kind of Dr. Yablo's predecessor.
Yeah.
You're one of the first one, yeah, part of the dual sort of in this position that's evolved over the couple of years. So I'll allow you two kings to just share
I don't miss it. I don't miss it. I'll tell you that much. I was listening to this interview and it was trauma. But you know, but what I'll say is, kudos to you, James, man. Honestly, you've been doing this for years. I'll never forget when we was ahead of public safety and you guys came up with this thing around folks when after shootings happen in our neighborhood and people die and community is in unrest and there's not enough trauma response and supports, and you was trying to figure out ways to make sure community had assets that if they needed the support to be able to do it. And we brought up I think a group of 4 of you guys in a room, and you came up with these solutions. You came up with these thoughts, and we really leaned on community back then. It was important, and even if you got on our last nerves, it was important to make sure community voice was a part of it. So I'll never forget 4 of you guys came in the room. We mandated that the Boston Public Health Commission come in that room. We met at the police station down in Roxbury, and we said, listen, with police in the room, with Boston Public Health Commission in the room, you 4 activists that are serious about making sure community gets the support it needs. What needs to happen? And based out of that meeting, we came up with the cue cards, with the cards of information that if anybody felt harm in our neighborhoods or had dealing with trauma, that they knew who to contact in the city and they knew the resources that existed. That came out of that meeting. That came out of that fight that you had. That came out of those arguments and those calls that you constantly gave us. And so I love it. It's good to see you still at it, brother. Honestly, man, I'm gonna give you a little bit of flowers. It's great to see you still at it. Now you're in a different platform, but you're still doing the same thing. You're still asking the questions. And that's how we get to be our best selves, when somebody from community is asking the question and we're being responsive to that question and not feeling like we have all the answers, but leading our community to be co-conspirators and partners in the work. And so I love that. Keep up the great work, and keep asking the question. Brother Yablo, keep doing with all that you can, man. It's not a popular job. You're working for an institution, and there's restraints on what you can do, right? But what you can do, you must lean in and do at your best. And it's great to see you at it.
Absolutely. Thank you, big dog.
No doubt
Dr.
about it.
James, thank
I've
you
been
too.
calling you Dr. Conan today, Conan, because we've had Dr. Ojukutu, we got Dr. Yablo. So today, you're going to be, I might slip up and start calling you Dr. Harris. Conan,
okay.
I appreciate you. I'm going to allow Dr. Yablo to go. I really wanted
Peace
that
to you, King.
for y'all to.
Peace, good brothers.
Dr. Yablo, will I'll talk to our good friend Payan and
Yep.
get you back on. All right.
Shout
Thank
out
you.
to Payan. All right.
Thank you. Folks, we thank Dr. Yablo for being. Conan, you were supposed to cross over with Dr. Yablo. Now, I appreciate it. I'm doing better at accepting flowers. Thank you. And I wanted to say this with him on screen. It's not just Dr. Yablo that got the energy. Dr. Falk got the energy. You and Dan, you and Leon, and so.
No. You've been consistent.
Thank you for.
This is. No, that's why I said it, man. I'm like, listen, you've been consistent, man, and that's what we need in community. We need a level of consistency. You didn't just get here. You didn't get here on the show and start asking about community violence. You did it with us. Even when I was running Street Safe Boston, you asked the question, and each time you just always want to ask the question, and that's important. We need folks that are serious about how our community turns out and addressing some of the violence and figuring out different strategies on how to do it. And,
Yes,
and sometimes we're going to listen and we're going to be able to partner, and then sometimes we may not. But the goal is to be able to create an audience of other people's thought process, because they may be able to see something that we're not looking at. And I love that.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate the and I have to give you flowers too as well, Conan. And I think that in the times of what's going on nationally and what we're seeing currently in the news, I think it's important for the audience to see Black men that are loving on each other, naming literally right here, Conan. There, when you more than others, there was an implied disrespect of a good brother's wife. There was an apology made here. If that didn't go right, that could have been a very different outcome, literally in real time, right here in the comments. And so I'm allowing this flower sharing because our community does need to see some good news. Our community does need to, hear this. And we have other good news, that we're going to share as well, that I think really. Go ahead, and we'll move on to,
No, I just think that, we're in a place of hurt, man. And there's some places in a place of despair. And it isn't just germane to our community in Boston. It's all around the country. People in need. And when people in need, people get desperate, and people don't always have the filter that they once had when you're not feeling good and when you're not feeling safe. And so the goal is to be able to give folks grace, but also be able to make sure that we're being respectful and being responsible as it comes to people's family. Because remember, no matter who it is, that brother Yablo, man, Dr. Yablo, and many others that are in leadership roles, you never know what they're going through as well. I remember being in that space. I probably was at my heaviest weight and at my most stressful times. And people probably thought I had it all together, and I had to have it all together because I was responsible for delivering resources to community. But it didn't take away the fact that I was going through my own trauma, my own things that I was dealing with internally as a man. And so I just think that we got to be mindful of that, and we got to give each other that level of grace to one another. And I know it's difficult, and I know it's hard when you're in need, but try that more often than not, because you just never know.
Conan, I believe that's a good, transition. This is a serious subject, and hopefully we'll be hearing from you soon in a different space, kind of more on this subject. But when you talk about, in need, I'm not just saying this, just that it's always men, but transitioning us into this conversation, a lot of the stress that men deal with from the time you were in that position to the wonderful things that you're doing now. And let me just say, and I'll get him off the screen so I can say it for the trolls. Hold on for 1 second. That this young man and his wife's ability to gain wealth. That is very, very important. And part of that is employment, Conan. Dr. Ojakutu said it about economic development. And so for the past few years, Meet Boston has been very intentional about taking a different approach to helping community try to meet their employment needs. But then the other side of that is we've known that the job market, the industry has been interesting for employers. And I do you believe that all of this is relative, Conan?
No, I absolutely. The whole mindset behind me, Boston, and opening up this particular industry, which is the hospitality and tourism industry, is the mindset of it really happened way back when COVID took place, right? Folks wasn't going to work. The industry has stopped, right? The world stopped, and tourism and hospitality was one of the biggest industries that went to a halt. And when we came out of that, folks was rightfully so a little bit scared to go back to work. So to bring people back to work in a full schedule took some time. And now I think we're at a place where people are showing up to work, understands the industry's back on its good foot. But we have a busy summer coming up, right? We have FIFA coming up. We have the tall ships. This is the year's 250th. And this is Meet Boston's 5th career fair. And their goal was to create an opportunity to think about Greater Boston. They knew that folks that of non-color was already working in this industry in executive roles. Everybody understood that, but we didn't know that Greater Boston, some of our black and brown, some of our students that are black and brown, some of our mid-career executives that are black and brown knew that this industry was for them. And so they started to embark on this career fair as a way to engage Greater Boston, engage Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, Hyde Park, South End, and say Chinatown, and say this industry is yours as well. This is not just about lower level jobs. This is mid-career, mid-level jobs, directors, managers, executive. These are roles that can help be a career for you. And then it's different levels of employment. These are for students that want to work summer jobs. These are people who want to work part-time jobs. These are people that understand this industry and looking at this industry as an opportunity. We wanted to make sure we expose our Greater Boston residents to this industry as an opportunity for you.
I want to make sure I'm in the background, Brother Conan, getting the link to make sure that people have. I'm going to put it in the comments right now as we're talking in case they have to pop out the information. So surprisingly to me, just because you've been so great and Meet Boston has been great engaging this small community-based entrepreneurial platform, I thought it's only been 3 years. It's been 5 years. And so
it's been 5 years. This is my 3rd year partner with Meet Boston to do it. And so ever since I've been on, I've kind of said, hey, there's these things that are happening in our neighborhood as I'm supposed to, right? These great entrepreneurs that are doing some great work in our community. How do we make sure that we keep them involved? I want people to join and come to this career fair for many different reasons, right? You get to cut out the middleman. Right, you go straight to employers. You get engaged straight with hotel GMs and HR managers, and you get a chance to meet them and present yourself. You put on your suit, you put on your dress, you come there with your resume in hand, and you meet them, and you get to learn what the industry has to offer. And not only that, if you already have a job, then you get a chance to come down and get a professional headshot, right? Because we do professional headshots.
Hold on, Conan. You beat me to it. I was getting ready to ask you to go over not just the talking to the folks, but I got a headshot the first year I came. There was a workshop and panel. So you got a bit ahead of me as you take a sip. But I'm going to put the flyer up. Let's go through I've seen some of the folks that you got lined up down there this year.
Oh, I'm serious about making sure our folks is in the building. I'm serious about making sure our folks is in the building. So this, as you see the flyer up on the screen, this is just the opening. So some of the speakers that you see there is myself, John Barrows, CEO of Meet Boston, Martha Sheridan, and Lydia Downey, who is the CEO of Pine Street Inn. We really wanted to make sure that was a speakers program to start off before the ribbon cut and we go into the particular job fair. but also we wanted to make sure people were equipped. So we do workshops. That was a thing that we started when we came on. We wanted to make sure that there was workshops, professionals to help you navigate through this industry. So the mindset wasn't just, we didn't just want you to get a job. We want to open the door for a career. So some of our workshops is really about customer service training, because when I looked at this particular industry, everything is about customer service, how you present, meeting people, how you meet people, how you engage your fellow man and fellow woman as soon as they walk into this particular establishment in this business. And then navigating, how do we work from entry level to executive role? How do we navigate with this particular industry? We want to make sure folks was equipped. And then how do we utilize our social media and bringing our social media from one position to the next? How do we use it to our advantage? And how do we make sure we're not using it to our disadvantage? Because sometimes we're on social media living a whole different life and we don't realize our employers are looking at us, right? And paying attention. The first thing they say is, let's look up their social media or what kind of person they are. So we want to make sure that we're using our social media responsibly. So we saw that as a way to help support people in the workforce. So we made that an opportunity as a workshop as well.
I just want to name some of the folks, Conan. Two I've had the pleasure of working and serving with. Definitely No Martha. I also, have worked with you, obviously, and the good John Barrows. We're in the process of working together again in his new role. But over here to these two that are doing the workshops, there's Brother Kurt Faustin and also Sister Amaya, and then also our Rachel as well. And so that lineup there, sir.
Listen, we wanted to make sure that we gave that wealth of experience. I think everybody in our community, you should know Brother Kurt Foster, man. He's a superstar. That young brother there is serious about his work and how he presents. He does motivational speaking, but he's also teaching our community based off his experience and his learning throughout his own career and pathways. So he's great. Last year he came and he did an excellent job and people wanted him back. Before I even was able to say, hey, we're looking at workshop, they was like, are you going to bring Kurt back? So he is somebody that folks saw as an asset to what we were doing. We made sure to bring him back. Amaya, that sister's been set on the scene, running wild, man. She's been doing an excellent job. A lot of different companies use her to build their capacity through social media. And so we wanted to make sure we brought her on, because if she's teaching companies how to build their capacity through social media, she can sit down with our residents and say, hey, this is how you use this to your benefit, but this is how you can use this to your disadvantage. And we wanted to make sure we brought her on to do that. And then Rachel, I had a great deal of time of working with Rachel. She used to work with Conan Harris and Associates. She was one of our partners and associates. And she used to go around to different organizations that we're partner on, and she used to do trainings on customer service. And so she did that to some of our partners in the community and do those trainings with them. So we wanted to make sure she came on and do that in community with us at the job fair.
I'm sitting here, and it's not often that I stutter, but this is definitely a definite. I think every year it gets better and better. The church folks used to say every round goes higher and higher. You know what I mean? And so when I saw Kurt and Sister Amaya, and I was wondering where I recognized Rachel's name from. So it was with you at Conan, Harris Associates. So Conan, and
you know I'm coming to see you, I'm like, listen. The way that we keep this community engagement going is we got to be able to tap into our people. That's it. We have to be able to make sure if we're doing community engagement that we're not banging on our chest and thinking that we have all the answers, but we're being deliberate with engaging community to get that word out, to be able to support and work with. It needs to be an industry that we're all a part of. If it's a $30 billion industry, our community needs to be a part of it. We need to be executives in it. We need to be in mid-management roles in it. We need to work in this particular industry. And then we need to figure out how to contract in it and be owners in it, right? That is what this is. If this is the third largest economic engine in our city and state, one is education, one is the healthcare, and the other one is tourism and hospitality. We need to be figuring out how to be a part of this, how to be contracted in this, and then make sure that we're in opportunities where growth can take place. And that's the way that this needs to happen. I'll say a little bit something else, James. One, I would never say, don't listen to everything you hear on the news, man. When I think about wealth and what I'm trying to do is figuring out ways to help build capacity for myself, so then I could be able to teach my fellow man and woman, right? It doesn't come by just wishing it through. It comes from hard work and figuring it out and being mentored. And one of the things that's so important to me is that I tap into other people who are doing it. And I learned. Some of them are younger than me. Some of them are older than me. But I'm not afraid to ask people, how did you do this? What does this look like? What can happen through this? And I have them hold my hand. I don't got no pride about asking people questions and asking people for help. And that's the whole goal. That's my secret sauce. I don't have pride. I'm not running around with pride to ask for help or to learn. And sometimes I'm a student and sometimes I'm a teacher. But when it comes to this wealth conversation, I'm a student right now because I want to know how to take care of my family for generations to come. I do believe that we belong everywhere. And what I mean by that—
Hold on,
real quick, not just in a fun way.
Yes, sir.
Not just in a recreational way, but in a real way. We cannot, when crisis is happening in our country, we can't be the only ones that are in this situation of panic and not knowing what's happening tomorrow and how to take care of ourselves and take care of our family. We have to learn how to then become owners and build capacity, so then we can be in a position where we're not in panic mode. Because that's all I've ever known growing up. That's all my family's ever known growing up. That's all other generations is happening in my family know growing up. So we have to try to change courses. And even though I'm not there now, I wish I was. I wish everything that they reported on I actually had. But I'm on a pathway of learning more and building more and figuring it out. And that's the direction I want to be in.
Couple of things there. One, we're going to let you close out with my favorite statement that you make. Two, and I say this respectfully, Conan, and I don't know where, I think I may be a little bit older, but something's changed in you. I don't know what it is, but it's and you've always been confident, but there's this, I don't know, man. There's this from presentation to just, and I'm enjoying it, King, and I'm enjoying the seriousness. And I can tell you all unequivocally, Conan is not just talking about this economic wealth that, yes, does start sometimes with a job. For those of you that are looking or changing careers, make sure you go to the Meet Boston event. We're going to review that in a second. But Conan talks this on the phone with me all the time. I don't think there's, if we talk 10 times a month, 8 of the conversations include economic come up and you know, the importance of that. I lightly raise stuff, Conan, one in the defensive manner, you know, play with you and my sister at all. But I also thank you for raising the point that you give clarity here. You gave instruction, you gave encouragement. And yes, in the financial wealth space, but you also demonstrated that you have no problem asking for help. And I think for us right now, that transcends away from wealth building, that transcends to the mental health space, that transcends into asking somebody, yo, I want to go to the career fair. Can you look at my resume for me? You know what I mean? And so there's just so much that you shared with us today that it's been a lot. It's really been a lot, brother.
No, if we don't tap in, if we don't ask for help, if we're not trying to figure it out, and we're sitting here saying the world ain't trying to do nothing with us, but we're not asking anybody for support, shame on us. Shame on us. I realized a long time ago that this can't happen with just what I know. I want to tap into people who know more. I want to be around people who know more, and I want to figure it out. I want to make sure that I'm tapping into these brilliant brothers and sisters that know, have a great deal of knowledge about things that I don't have a clue about, and I want to say, how'd you do that? Walk me through how you did that, and then I want to try it. And then I want to learn from trying it. Even if I get my head busted a little bit, I want to learn from that process. The number one thing that I'll say is don't learn just to learn, execute. Go to execute. If me and you were having hours of conversation about one day you buy some property, this and that, when it's time to buy that property, go for it. You know what I mean? Get your credit up, go for it. Let's figure this thing out because you're going to learn a lot by going through the process. And then we got to make sure we're being deliberate with loving on our people. I think that I don't want to be the only one. If it's just me and James, then we're wrong. We need to be making sure that we're deliberate in engaging our fellow man and woman. So every time I learn something, every time I talk to somebody, it literally just comes out my mouth that way. Me and you could be talking about community violence, James, and I'm like, hey, you thought about doing this? You think about buying a house? You think about this? This is what I've learned. And that's just natural for me because I want to make sure that whatever I learn, that I teach.
Conan, you're the reason that when I do purchase, as much as I want to be out in 3 acres by myself, Conan's like, you need to get it too. I can't say nothing you say without imitating you. Conan, your honorary doctor. And listen, it's so funny because I was joking about, you being doctorate today, having an honorary doctorate today, since we had Dr. Yablo and Dr. Ojukutu. But sir, you definitely came off as someone who has been able to write a thesis statement in a lot of these spaces as far as what you're showing. And even a couple of the audience is sensing the same thing, that there's, I don't know what it was, but something done. Did you hit 50 yet? What happened? Something done happen.
Look, you know what it is, James? What it is I have a beautiful daughter that is going in a senior year, and she is going to college. And I am in a state of mourning, right? I'm in a state of loving and happy on one end, but I am also in a state of can't believe that we're at a stage where for the last 18 years, I've been living for something that is about to go off and live it and do it on our own, and excited about the prospect of going to do it on our own. I'll always be there, but it is something in the water that say my baby's leaving the house. And my wife is literally rubbing my back every day saying, baby, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. I'm trying. This is real talk. This is uncharted waters for me, man. This is everything I love right here in a human. And she is about to take off. And so I'm constantly talking to myself and figuring out what this next phase is going to look like.
Well, in knowing you, understanding that you had to, one, just because it's the right thing to do for you, the wife and the family and the world, but you had to be intentional about your level setting just to make sure that you're going to be able to get through it.
You know what I mean? My temperament had to take a back seat quickly because I was raising a girl that had the strength of me, that was looking at me the same way I was looking at her and was saying, I got this. And I had to be like, what? She's looked at me back and said,
to your point, you just told us a few minutes ago, don't learn and ask just to learn, but learn to execute. So my word to share back with you, sir, is you taught her well.
Yes.
So now allow her to go and execute, sir. I love you, dude. I appreciate you. It went up. It went up to some extent today because there's just definitely something different. So we thank God for her because your level setting to be able to handle her transition has blessed all of us. So, brother, I appreciate you. I want to make sure we share the information one more time before you go. Folks, don't forget that the career fair is taking place on next Tuesday, a week from today, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. I have the active link in the comments there. I will.
It's at the Westin Copley Hotel, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. You do not want to miss this. It gets rid of all the middlemen. You're able to meet directly with hotel GMs and HR professionals out of those hotels, and you get to go talk to them yourself. It's not through Conan. It's not through anyone else. This is you and employers. Go up there and talk to them and engage them and shoot your shot. I think that they'll be lucky to receive you because our greater Boston and what we have to offer, they haven't seen yet. And so they need to meet you, they need to know you, and they need to see our genius And so I look forward to seeing everybody there. If you need an opportunity of employment, you should be there.
That hold on. You need to say that on full screen. Hold on. Let me take this down real quick. And that needs to be a clip right there. All right. Say it again, Coney.
11 to 3 p.m. at the Westin Copley Hotel on Tuesday, April 28th. Make sure you are there. I think that it's important that you get in front of employers, you get a chance to meet you, but they'll be lucky to meet us. They need to meet our genius. They need to see us, who Greater Boston is. Our Black and brown community needs to show up and show out. They'll be lucky to have us in this industry. But not only that, it's important for you to be a part of this industry. It's the third largest economic engine in our state and in our city. How dare we not be a part of it? I look forward to seeing us all there. Have a great day. And James, thank you for having me.
So your departing words are, we what, Conan?
Brother, we belong everywhere. Everywhere. We belong in boardrooms. We belong in opportunities to build wealth. We belong in opportunities where there's employment. We belong in opportunities where we're running in big marathons. We belong in opportunities where we're in the boardroom and executive suites. We belong everywhere. Do not let nobody limit you to any position or any role. We belong in every situation that serves us well and serves us good. God bless you.
Dr. Harris, we appreciate you being here today, and we'll talk soon, brother. Appreciate and love, man.
All right. Peace to you, King. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you again, brother. Peace.
Well, I guess that's our sign to get ready to I hit that by mistake. Whew. Okay. We started at 9:45. That means that you get 10:45. It's 11:30. You all get an hour and 45 minutes today. I'm tired. That brother. Shout out to Sister Cora that pushed Conan into his deliverance. You have to know Conan to really appreciate what he was saying about his baby getting ready to leave. Thank you all for being here today. It's definitely been a great day of community engagement around our health, around community safety, which is a part of our health, and also our individual opportunity to develop economically by attending the Meet Boston event. So thank you all for being here. We will be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. and also on Thursday at 10 a.m. And we have some information to share with you next week. What? No, hold on. Pastor Sharon Cornelius. No, we get 2 hours because if we want for you, if we wait for you and keep trying to get on, we still get our time. I didn't do nothing. All right, Sharon said you all get well, Mama Java and Sharon, y'all can figure it out. 1:45 to 2 hours. Union Capital members, that's what you get. For those of you that are wondering what that is, Java with Jimmy is considered community engagement. If you join Union Capital's community engagement program, you can get points for watching Java with Jimmy and other community engaging events. So hit Mama Java or hit Sharon and go ahead and sign up because they get points for signing y'all up too. With that being said, we'll see you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Have a great, terrific testimony. And what did someone just said? Who was it? Veronica Michelle Evans said, who was it that said something about the Tuesday? Oh, Latoya said turned into Motivation Tuesday. Absolutely. Transformative Tuesday. All right, y'all. Have a good day, everybody. Peace.